don't know why I got picked out.
Right, can everybody hear us? Thank you. I'd like to welcome you all to this Growth Scrutiny Committee meeting on the 15th of March 2021. Welcome, councillors, to this live streamed meeting of the Growth Scrutiny Committee at Bolsover District Council. This is a public meeting being streamed live to YouTube and via the council's website. If for any reason the public can no longer hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn the meeting until the connection has been re-established. This meeting is also being recorded. Can the facilitator confirm who is in remote attendance at this meeting? Nicola, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. So in this meeting, have yourself as the Chair of Growth, Councillor Jen Wilson, also in attendance, Councillors Mary Dooley, David Dixon, Tom Kirkham, Jim Clifton, Liz Smith, Peter Roberts, Nick Clark, and also supporting the meeting today, you have members of the governance team. You have your scrutiny officer, Joanne Wilson, Grant Galloway, who's the Director of Planning, Chris Bridlington, who's the Assistant Director of Planning, and Natalie Etches, who is the, apologies Natalie, I've lost you on my screen, you're the Business Growth Manager, is that correct?
That is correct, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask for, I've got to read this yellow thing first, sorry. Chair, I will now hand over to the facilitator to explain some of the procedures for this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Members, as is normal for meetings of committees and council, if you'd be kind enough to keep your cameras on for the duration of the meeting. If you'd like to speak, a simple raise of hand and the Chair should be able to see. I'll assist if I can if she is unable to. You're able to use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak. If nobody is seeing you, I'll enable the captions in order to communicate with you through the meeting. If you'd be kind enough to adhere to the etiquette as normal procedure for council committees meetings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will now begin the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Kane. Have we any other apologies?
Chair, we've received no other apologies.
Thank you. Item 2, urgent items. I have had no urgent items of business for today. Have we had any others, Joanne?
No, Chair, I'm not aware of any.
Thank you. Item 3 is declarations of interest. As per usual practice, could I ask if there are any declarations to be made for today's meeting? I'm quite sure if anything crops up, you will inform us and we will carry on from there. If there are no declarations of interest, Nicola, will you confirm they have been noted?
Thanks, Chair. There are no declarations made in this meeting.
Thank you. Item 4, minutes. Starting on page 5 of the agenda pack, we have the minutes from the 17th of February for approval. I'd like to move these as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Could I have a seconder, please?
Councillor David Dixon wishes to second.
Right, thank you. Could I ask all members to give a show of hand who are in favour, please?
Chair, that vote is carried, although there are some members who have not yet voted, so you may wish to.
Yes. Are there any abstentions?
No abstentions, Chair.
Right, thank you for that. Item 5, a list of key decisions. The link to the most recent list of forthcoming decisions can be found on pages 9 of the agenda pack and on the committee software system. Can I ask the scrutiny officer to brief members on the report, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Joanne?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So the current list of key decisions has a mixture of decisions that we actually looked at the February executive meeting, and then there are also a number of decisions scheduled for the March meeting. On the current list of key decisions, we have an item on the purchase of development land in relation to a Bolsover Home scheme. Contact officer for this is Ian Barber, Head of Property Services and Housing Repairs, and this is due to be considered by exec on the 22nd of March. There is also a report on the local authority mortgage scheme. This is an exempt report, and the contact officer for this is Chris Fridlington, Assistant Director of Development and Planning. Again, that's for consideration on the 22nd of March. There is a report on corporate debt write-offs for the outstanding amounts. Contact officer is Teresa Fletcher for the Head of Finance and Resources. A final report for the 22nd of March is Housing Enforcement and Community Safety, which is a report of the Head of Housing Management and Enforcement, Victoria Dawson. Oh, sorry, a final report for the 22nd of March is a report from the Head of Leeds Executive and Partnership on some funding that we've received from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government on the Community Champions funding. There are a number of items on the list that have already been approved by Executive. These include a report looking at a build scheme in Whitwell for Bolsover Homes, that was around Sandy Lane and Thorpe Avenue. There was also a further report on the direct award through one of our procurement frameworks for external wall insulation, and an update on the discretionary grant funding, which we are currently distributing through the Economic Development Service. Are there any questions on that, Chair?
Councillor Dooley, do you want to come in, please?
I think it's Councillor Kirkham, Chair, who
No.
wants to come in.
No, Jen, I ain't got anything to say.
Oh, sorry, Mary, you must have been flicking your pen about. Sorry, Tom, would you like to come in, please?
Thanks, Chair. Just a question around, there was a load of other delegated decisions released the other week. I know they were dated in the summer, but a couple related to Growth Committee. Is there any reason why they was published 6 months later than after the decision was made?
Apologies, I'm not sure that's something I could answer. I would imagine it potentially it was just about the updating of the online system. I'm not sure whether there was any delay to that, but they were circulated as required at the time and went through the normal procedures for those delegated decisions.
Right, it's just that there was one related to community right to bid, and it was the decision was made on the 1st of July, and the publication wasn't until the 2nd of March. There was loads of others in other committees as well. Maybe it was just a bug with the modern gov system.
Potentially. We can look into that for you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for
I can
that.
see no other hands raised, Chair. So if members do have specific questions about the reports going to March Executive, obviously you can go to the contact officers for those reports.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So it's just to note the report then, Chair.
Yeah, do we want to show of hands, John, or do we just?
We can do, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to make a note the report, and I'll propose it. Can I have a seconder, please? Chris
Councillor
Clough.
Clough, Chair.
Thank you. Can we have a show of hands for all in favour?
Chair, that's carried.
Thank you. Joe, are we on item 6?
We are, Chair.
Thank you. And that commences on page 10. Joanne, is this for Chris to bring this in?
It is, Chair. There are some notes within your on page 5 of your notes.
On page 5? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I've got to the bottom of that page and not to the top. We will now consider the draft strategy presented to us in the papers. Members will recall we looked at an initial draft of this document at our informal meeting in January. The document is now in its final stages and due for presentation to executive for approval. We have the Assistant Director of Development and Planning with us today to brief us on the documents and changes made. Chris, would you like to begin, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Before I start on the strategy, just a quick note to introduce and say Natalie Etchers is now our Business Growth Manager. You might recall that Natalie had some time off to have twins, was our Business Centres Manager and successfully applied for this new post. And she's come back to work with us on the 1st of March. So I hope members will be happy to join me in welcoming Natalie back and wish her every success in her new post. She reports directly to me, and of course I report directly to Grant. So we're working together on the strategy now she's back in post. I don't intend to go through the report we've submitted to Growth page by page. I'm just going to give a bit of an overview of where we are and what I think and where our recommendations come from. Essentially, we started off with a corporate target to adopt a business growth strategy by March of this year. So we're reasonably on course with that. And much of the strategy comes out of a transition from the coronavirus economic recovery plan that was drafted sort of March, April time last year, which included a lot of options. And then as we've gone along through the year, obviously we have a set of council ambitions, we have some council priorities, and we have corporate targets. In a nutshell, what our growth strategy is aiming to do is to tell you the how we are going to achieve the council's ambitions, how we're going to meet those priorities, and how we're going to meet those corporate targets. When we met in, I think it was late January, to discuss the strategy document, we've not made a great deal of changes to that. And unfortunately, a typo's crept in at page 16 on your papers. I think it's just under outputs. There's a duplicate paragraph and a number missing. What was intended there was to say that if these actions in the action plan and the strategy would come to pass, then it should be in the region of between £5 and £10 million of annual income that those projects will generate. So I'm sorry that that typo has crept in, but that's what I was intended to say, that if we was to deliver all those projects, what you would start to see is an annual income turnover around £5 to £10 million. So it's a significant amount of money on top of the additional one-off income that we hope to generate. Since we've met in January, we've now also issued the action plan. So we have a strategy document that gives perhaps a bit of a narrative of what's to be achieved. The action plan is perhaps a little bit more down to real time of all those different individual objectives and targets and where we are, who leads, what we've done, where we're going to next, and some idea of timelines. And the two are taken together. So I'm hoping now that what we've got in front of you is a strategy that sets out our direction, where we aim to make income, how we intend to support and facilitate business growth, also support the council's ambitions and priorities. But as we go down to the recommendations at the bottom, you'll notice that not only are we asking you to recommend adoption of this document, we do realise that whilst we think we're good on the content and we've got the right ideas in there, the right projects, we know the presentation of the document is not quite there yet. So we're asking to retain some delegated authority in liaison with our portfolio holder, Councillor Smith, to get the presentation right. That's, to include the drawings, the diagrams, the pictures, and get the thing looking a lot nicer. We're also asking to retain a degree of delegated authority, again, liaison with the portfolio holder, Councillor Smith, to make adjustments and to add things and take things out as we go along as needs must. Because I think most of all, what strikes me about this particular document, it is intended to be a living document, but we live in very uncertain times. We have the Brexit is still unsettled as to which direction that will go in. You'll probably see the reports of the weekend about how that might or might not affect imports. We've got a vaccine program that seems to be working, but there's still some uncertainty about third waves. We've got a levelling fund that came out the other week. There's a shared prosperity fund that might come out soon. So there's loads of opportunities, loads of uncertainty. And some of the things that we have in the strategy might not work out, and other opportunities might arise that we need to take. And that's what that's really about, that third point about some flexibility. We want to be open and ready to take opportunities when they arise, but we also don't want to be wedded to projects that are not going anywhere. And of course, we'll report those as we go along, either through this committee or the updates that Kath Drury and her team take. So I'm hoping that gives you an overview of where we're at. And I think at this stage, I'll pass back to you, Chair, and quite happy to take any questions or discuss the points we've raised and so on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Chris. Have any members got any questions that they wish to ask? Councillor Dooley, would you like to come in with yours, please?
Thanks, Chair. Chris, are we not running behind the door on pages 19, Kingston Station and the Maid Marian line? Ashfield was given £50,000 to reinstate the passenger line in Seltston Station. Is this something that we should have contacted them for, to get, you know, £50,000 to open a station down the south?
Thank you. Yeah, I think, thank you for raising that, Councillor Dooley. I appreciate that, because what you've seen there is, and I think this is a question for members as well, is the report you're referring to as January's update. Since then, we've been in touch with Ashfield. We're now part of the partnership. Myself and Natalie have got a site meeting with Ashfield District Council in April. They very much welcomed us on board, because we pointed out to them that, of course, if you want a station in Selston, it goes into our boundary. So, of course, they want us on board if they want to make this thing work. So since that report was written and that particular update was, we've made a lot of progress. And you're dead right. We went from being behind the door to hopefully back on the front foot again with it.
Come in, Mary.
Yeah, because this could alleviate the problems on junction 28, where we've got all the congestion every single day. So I welcome your comments, Chris, and I don't know whether I should have declared an interest in this, living in Pinkston, but I'd certainly like to know the outcome of the talks with Ashfield.
And just to say, because this is on our action list and the action plan and the strategy, yes, we'll certainly update members as we go along with this. I certainly agree with you, connectivity-wise, down the bottom end of the district, as it were, and that southern part, you know, sort of Pinkston, as you know, South Normanton to a certain extent as well, is suffer with the 28 connectivity, and I think it's great that we've been able to move that on with Ashfield, and we'll certainly keep members updated as we go along. And at the moment, it's a positive story.
Tom, would you like to come in, please?
Thanks, Chair. Just a question about the Freeport. So I know it was only announced the other week, so you know you can't update the document to incorporate all that. But has there been any links to the Freeport discussed with them up into Bolsover? I know that the line, if you get it going through Pinkston, could go down to Toton, which would link into the Freeport. So maybe that's one angle.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big reasons for wanting to pursue it, with the sort of connection through Toton. But like you say, it's quite early days with the Freeport. I know, and I'm sure you all will know that the local MP was being very vocal in support of that. And I think there's a piece of work there for us to explore and try and investigate and understand what opportunities that will provide us. At the minute, as we know, it's a little bit unclear because it's down the south of Derbyshire, you know, and it sort of has a bit of a competition with some of our ambitions. They want the green energy stuff down there and one or two other bits and bobs. But I'm sure that that's a piece of work that we need to take on and look at, because if the preliminary and the government's intentions around Freeport are correct, it should open up some further opportunities for us.
Thank you. Trish, Trish, do you want to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions, please, and thank you, Chris and Natalie, for all the work that you've put in on the plan. Regarding housing growth, I just needed to know whether or not we are currently meeting the targets set in the local plan, and if there are any issues regarding the Clown Garden Village that might be having it sent back to planning. And that's my first question. And my second one was to do with the electric points. Have any areas indicated that they don't wish to have electric points? And if so, what were their reasons?
I'll perhaps start with the two questions, is electric charging points. I don't think there's any area that's rejected charging points. I think what we found is in the first round, we had a couple of sites that didn't prove to be suitable. And in the round, this is all to do with that particular funding stream that we're looking at. This is particularly for on-street charging points for residential properties. So there's a whole load of criteria around it where the car park's got to be free, it's got to be open 24 hours a day, it's got to be close to residential properties. And then you've got the technicality or the technical issues of where the mains are relative to where you want to put the points. And that's where the costs really can rise quickly. So, as they call them, DNOs, distributed network operators, which we mean like Western Power Distribution, they will charge a certain amount for taking the right amount of voltage from their main system to your points. And that can be incredibly restrictive and expensive. So for an example of that, we asked them to revisit Shirebrook, the Ashbourne Road car park. And the whole scheme comes out at £38,000 to put 4 dual chargers in, which takes it outside of OZEV's or OLEV's funding pot. So we're going to go back to them and make some more representations about those costs, whether they can give us a bit more grant to do it at no cost to the council. But that's the thing that's seen widely across Derbyshire, that the infrastructure network, the electricity network, is not helping support the rollout of electric charging points. So there's a whole lot of work with Midlands, East Midlands, I cannot remember the name of the organisation. We're starting to plot the infrastructure points and then start to give you an idea of where these things are best placed, where they could go, if the network's there, and the gaps in the network. And that's a whole different project in its own right, which we intend to follow up, which is to sort of say, right, where are the opportunities in this district already for charging points? Because back to your initial question, I think everybody realises that when electric charging points come forward, the district hasn't got enough. And we can't do the rollout of electric cars if people can't charge them. So to find out where we've got the opportunity and to find out where the gaps is like the first part of that next piece of work. So I think in a minute we've sort of explored and exhausted what we can actually do in our own car parks and our own sites. So we need to find other opportunities, and whether that is something that rolls out to parishes, for instance, sorts of village halls, all that sorts of stuff. So there's a whole big piece of work to do on that. But at least the problem is being recognised. And like I say, it's not unique to us. As you might imagine, Derbyshire, with a lot of rural areas, has got similar problems wherever you go, whether it be Am Valley, Derbyshire Dales, and so on. So I think that was your second question answered. The first question is, the good news is on the local plan, housing supply of the supply sites that we've got for the next 5 years, and the numbers that are actually getting delivered on the ground are really good. Well above the housing delivery target set by the government. And you're meant to have a 5-year supply. If you speak to the policy team, they will tell you that there's something like 7 or 8 years worth of housing supply. So in terms of planning policy, in terms of development management, we are in a very, very good place in terms of saying, right, for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, we've got a lot of house builder interest in the district. You'll have seen for yourself, you've got Avance up in Creswell, there's Keepmow, there's other ones as well. There a whole load of them, Gleason's, all out and about building, which is great news for us because, you know, not only have we got the supply, we've got the delivery. Where Clown Garden Village becomes really, really significant in terms of a shortfall, if there is any problem delivering that site, is probably 6, 7, 8 years' time, where we'll have sort of gone through all those sites, and then we'll be starting to look at the biggest sites in the plan that are towards the back end of the plan period. So the plan period covers 15 years. It's sort of 2 years behind because of the way planning works. So we get to the midpoint of the plan, and that's where I was saying about 6, 7 years' time, where Whitwell Colliery and Clown Garden Village become really important in terms of housing delivery. So it's obviously incumbent on us now to sort of think what might come next if Clown Garden Village isn't coming forward, because there's still an impasse around the highway improvements that are required at Junction 30 and what we say the Treble Bob roundabout, which is the next one on from the motorway. We are in constant contact with county about this, but if any of you have any dealings with the county council, you might realise how frustrating and difficult that relationship can be at times. So we've been waiting since February for another meeting with Joe Batty and her highway colleagues. So we've spoken in these forums before about Clown Garden Village and what should be done about it. I think what was said was that we were likely to take it back to planning committee, maybe March, maybe April time. I think it's crystallising that that might well be the case, that it'll go back to planning committee in April, potentially with an officer recommendation, which will sound perhaps controversial, and it'll sound to be contrary to, I think, what the intent of your question might be, Councillor Clough. But we might have to send it back with a recommendation of refusal, because after nearly a year now, 2 years, whatever it's been since the original resolution, the 106 still hasn't been signed off, and we're getting nowhere fast at least in terms of resolving the highway improvements. The main issue is a lack of a potential agreement on those issues, and I think we're getting to the point now where, as a communities, Balber and Clown will need a bit of certainty, and I think we all feel that it's been allowing a little bit too long, really, to be satisfied that we're making good progress with that. So there's two quite long answers there, but I hope they do answer both your questions, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yes, they answer my questions.
Mary, are you wanting to come in? No.
Councillor Roberts was indicating to speak, as well as Councillor Clifton.
Right. Councillor Roberts, would you like to come in first, please?
Would. There we are. Yeah, it's just on that one. There's supposed to be 1,800 houses built at Clown Garden Village, and then Whitwell Tip. Well, combined, it was going to be 3,000 houses. Now Whitwell Tip's got about 500 in a minute. So where was the other 700 or so for Whitwell going to come from? Whitwell Tip, that was going to provide some. Can I just ask where that was coming from, or when was that going to be achieved? 1,800 plus 1,200 equals 3,000. So Whitwell have got more houses. So where were they going? Not switched on.
So is that your report somewhere, Councillor Roberts?
Well, that's what it says, yeah. It says Clown Garden Village, Whitwell Tip along Bolton should provide a bulk of planned housing growth within the district over the next 10 to 15 years. Cumulatively, these sites should provide over 3,000 new homes.
Okay.
Now, I've only got 500 or so at Whitwell, so there's another 700 going somewhere.
So there's Bolsover North in there. Bolsover North is 900 houses. So if you've got your 9...
Doesn't say that on here, but yeah. Go on then, yeah.
So right, yeah, 3 sites.
Sorry, that's my mistake. I've read it wrong.
Yeah, no worries.
That's good. I didn't want 700 more houses in Whitwell. It panicked me this morning. And the other question is, where optimised business growth measured by gross business rates, what does that mean? Are you going to put business rates up, or is that from new businesses?
No, that was just a measure that was introduced. I'm not 100% sure who's in the corporate target. And I think it was just a measure that they thought of, that if you get more business rates, it indicates that there's more new business premises that have been built, and therefore more ratepayers and more rate income. So I think that was a way of measuring the increase in actual commercial building, commercial properties, rather than anything else. So if you start off now, say, with the commercial properties that we've got, you'll have X amount of non-domestic rate as your initial tax base. I think what that particular target's getting at is that as you build new ones, as Colite comes forward, or Clown Garden Village, or Tangent 3 or Tangent 4, it should increase your tax base. So I think that's a very blunt measurement of trying to see where we've got growth in commercial property within the district.
So it is new business. Do we know where this new business is going to come from? How are we going about attracting it? Is it just because we're building sheds that are the right size, or what? What are we doing?
Would you do me a favour of just explaining? Are you asking what we're doing to bring in with investments in?
Yeah. I mean, some of the McLaren have just gone to Sheffield, for example. What are we trying to do to attract businesses to these new premises we're going to build? Because I've noticed everywhere is going to build new commercial sections, but what are we going to attract people to them? What are we doing? What incentives?
Right. Well, that's a really interesting question, isn't it? Because obviously we've got things out within our control. So obviously you'll have seen within your report, within the action plan, the aspiration, the ambition to buy land and build our own, Tangent 3, Tangent 4, and so on. So that's within our control. So if you turn to Colite, for instance, less so. You've got a private landowner there who's out there doing his marketing, and obviously we've got a site that's nearly ready to go. The other two big sites, Cloud Garden Village and Whitwell, aren't through the planning yet. And there's a whole separate question about whether, if you're talking about, do we offer business rate incentives? That's a full council type decision for that. But obviously what we try and do is market these sites. We obviously have an EDU team, plus as well others. There's the LEP, there's the county council, where we engage with a whole programme of inward investment, working through, I think it's the Derbyshire Partnership. We're asked to call for sites that they'll put in front of Chinese investors. So there's a whole load of work about getting people interested in our districts and in our sites. But obviously at the minute, like I say, there's an element of Colite are going their own way a little bit with it. Well, Whitwell and Clown Garden Village, we've already discussed Clown Garden Village is sort of stuck in a little bit of an impasse. And obviously Whitwell comes on board soon. So I'm not sure if that really answers the intent of your question, but I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the Chinese business, but right, okay. Obviously, we're trying to market it, so that's what really I was looking at. Other one is you've got Institute of Technology here. In Worksop, they're going to build a sort of a hub, a further education facility. Now, obviously, the high streets we've got are suffering. Can we put such things as institutes of technology in our high streets? Can we use some buildings that already exist rather than building new ones? Use something on the high street to attract people to the high street, to get the coffee shops open. Obviously, with people going into them, adult training, all kinds of things.
I think that's a really good question. I mean, first of all, you need to have the land and buildings available to you. And of course, lands and buildings need to be of a suitable size and scale. So it depends what you're aiming to do. So for sake of argument, if we were looking at train and transportation in association with HS2, you'd need a massive area to put your train body in. You obviously get the requirement for things like lecture halls, classrooms, some technical areas. So it's all dependent on the employer need, the sorts of curriculum requirements and so on. So yes, there could well be a place in the high street for some of these things, or it might need to go, and I suppose the thinking around this is, it might need to go where those industries are. so that there's a clearer connection with the employers, the practical tasks that they learn in, and so on. So that's why this is often being looked at on the Colite site, because it's close connectivity to Markham Vale. But there's no reason in its own right why you can't have sort of annexes or colleges that are within a town centre. And again, it's trying to make sure that they're linked with the businesses is there, and that it's attractive to the end users as well, for students, and obviously the employers. And if the employers aren't backing it, then we are going to struggle to get this off the ground.
Right, okay, yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Jim Clifton, if you'd like to come in, please. Go, David.
Thank you. It's on the same thing that Peter's just mentioned about business growth, and looking at ECO 0.02, optimised business growth as measured by business rates by £2 million by 2023. All the rumblings that we keep hearing now from central government regarding retail loss, businesses failing, etc., they are always on about reviewing business rates. Didn't we ought to not be a bit cautious about setting targets and looking at other financial impacts with regard to possible loss of business rates? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jim. Chris, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Clifton. The corporate target predates our strategy, and is like a sort of perhaps stumbled over in my explanation to Councillor Roberts. It's a very blunt measurement of the increase in commercial floor area within the district. Obviously, well, I say obviously, that's probably not fair. I would say it's within reason and within remit of members to change those policies and change those targets, change our priorities if the situation changes. I think it's a little bit, we're talking about in the introduction to this strategy. We are in really uncertain times, where I completely agree with you, Councillor Clifton, that in a year's time, the whole non-domestic rates might look completely different again from where they are today. And at that point, we have to report back to you as a scrutiny committee, to executive or council, wherever it's going to go, that corporate target is the wrong target, and it doesn't measure in a way that we want it to. It doesn't capture what we want it to. But as a whole, I would say that a target in its own right has very little bearing on any of the projects or the strategies we've been bringing forward, if you see what I mean. What we're bringing forward potentially should meet that target, but it's not dependent on that target, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So all the things that we plan to do would increase non-domestic rates. You know, if you introduce a station at Pinkston, if you were to build Tangent 3 and 4, if Colite, Whitwell and Clown Garden Village came forward, all of those would increase business rates and your tax base. But if there was a change to the non-domestic retail, non-domestic rates framework, I think we would still be right to bring forward Pinkston Station and the commercial opportunities at Clown Garden Village, Colite and so on, because they're still the right things to do, even if the national domestic rate framework changes. Does that sort of explain where we're coming from?
I'm not wanting to stifle growth, Chair, or any oncoming projects that may be in the pipeline. I'm just concerned that the rumblings we get from central government regarding business rates, that obviously it's a large part of the money that we bring into the authority. If there's any reduction in business rates, what that impact would have on the authorities and the services we provide, Chair. I'm being cautious with regard to business rates and the way that rumblings are coming from central government due to retail loss, business failing, etc. Chair.
Yep. Thank you, Jim. I know exactly where you're coming from with that. Natalie, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Clifton, it's probably just worth pointing out that there are two separate elements to this indicator. I've wholly recognised and acknowledged the points that you're making about the actual revenue of business rates that comes into the authority. this business rates measure is purely used as an indicator of the properties within the district. So if we were to build, for example, the Tangent Phase 3, which was a bank of smaller 1,000 square foot industrial units, they would have a rateable value attached to them. However, businesses would be eligible for small business rate relief, which doesn't actually then generate an income to the council because they don't pay the rates under the relief scheme. So there is the revenues that we generate through business rates paying businesses, but there is also the business rates liability which is attached to a property. So this indicator will be used as a way of demonstrating new business construction of business units. But we also need to recognise that we want to encourage small businesses, small business growth, of which they don't pay rates under the small business rate relief scheme. So just wanted to clarify the 2 points there, Chair.
Thank you. Are there anybody else wishing to ask a question? Yeah, David, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just the relationship between obviously ambitions to get business growth within Bolsover. However, what about the skill levels? I mean, we've talked about this for quite a long time, and I hope it's not going to be business growth at any cost. You know, we still need to be attracting, you know, it was mentioned again, I think Peter said sheds. I hope we're not going to get into this situation where we're just producing sheds and it's going to be, you know, basically Bolsover delivery services. Where are we going in terms of still trying to attract either, I don't know, a sixth form, some relationship with a university, so that we can get and attract high-skilled jobs. We can't just keep moving forward on the, you know, building sheds and filling them with low-cost labour.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I think two or threefold. Obviously, Councillor Roberts has already touched on the Institute of Technology. That particular piece of work is in partnership with a whole range of people, including Nottingham Trent, Vision West Notts, Nottingham College, Chesterfield College, and really around that exact issue that you're talking about, the lack of sixth form provision within this district, and then some of the issues around higher and further education and attainment levels. I think in your strategy and in the action plan, I think we talk about Kickstart. Obviously, some of this crosses over into the work we do in partnership with the partnership team. So there's a whole range of activities going on around building relationships with colleges, universities, or building on those existing relationships. Because I think it's a long-standing issue, isn't it, that we like that progression. Obviously, you know, it's unfortunate that our offices are actually in what was Chesterfield College's business, and they've retracted from the district. And we see all that, and we're trying our best to work alongside Pam Brown and her teams, and Laura Keller and Jess Layton and others to try and do something about that. But I would, again, want of a better expression, remind members that ultimately these are commercial decisions that are made by landowners and developers. So for sake of argument, with Coal-Line, we've done a hell of a lot of work around sort of negotiating, persuading, trying to shape and influence their commercial decisions to include something a bit better than sheds. But as you might imagine, ultimately, they have got consent for that sort of thing. If they choose that's what they're going to bring to the district, they would be hard pressed to turn them down. So it's an ongoing challenge where we recognise the issues, we recognise exactly what you're talking about. And that's part of our ambition and part of our aspiration to create a high value job economy where our local residents and the people that are coming through are getting high quality jobs with high quality pay, rather than, as you say, another set of sheds. So, like I say, there's a commitment towards that. I think we're reaching out towards Sheffield direction as well, with to see if they were interested in coming this direction. So both sets of universities and sets of college, there's a desire, I think, to increase their catchment, and they see North Derbyshire, including North East and ourselves, as an area where potentially there's a market there and an opportunity for them. So a lot of that work you described, Councillor Dixon, is ongoing. Hopefully we'll see some results.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dooley, did you want to come in?
Yes, please, Chair. I totally concur with everything you say, Chris. And there is a skills audit going out as I speak. I think it's been now nearly a fortnight round Bolsover from Sheffield University, Sheffield Hallam. They've come on board and we're asking for members of the public to put down what skills they have. So we're doing a skills audit throughout the district. But yeah, we don't want sheds. We want high skilled workforce. So hopefully when it's collated, this skills audit, we shall move on from there. But yeah, I concur with everything you've said, Chris.
Thank you, Mary. Councillor Tom Kirkham, would you like to come in first, please?
Thanks, Chair. Just a question on the skills audit. Are we going to utilise the output of the skills audit to attract jobs and institutions to our area?
If I could say that, I think, again, this is finding a baseline, really, of sort of saying, right, okay, where are the shortfalls? Because there's two sides to things like a centre of excellence or in technology or further education. One of which is a lot around establishing employer needs and what employers are looking for, where they think the skill gaps are, but also making sure that we've got the customers the right curriculum. So one of the ways that skills audit will help us immensely is identifying those shortfalls, and this sort of help us to start to get a baseline of saying, right, okay, if we were to put this type of curriculum in, this type of college, this type of centre or unit or learning centre, we know there's a demand and a need for it out there, because the skills audit gives us that baseline. And in some ways, I suspect the skills audit might help us establish, actually, we might need to go to something other than a sixth form college or an IoT. We might need to go back to that sort of tertiary college type thing, where we're going down to MVQ level. And that's some of the importance of the skill audit for us, is establishing that baseline, saying, right, where's the need, where's the opportunity again, in terms of where are the customers, where are the people that are going to come and sit in these IoTs or centre of excellence going to come from, and what is it that they need to learn.
Thank you for that, Chris. Councillor Dixon, did you want to come back in again, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Well, it's probably a bit of a loaded question, Chris, but do you see the education side and attracting the right kind of business is a parallel thing, or do we need to get the businesses in first, the high skilled business, to then attract the jobs, or do we need to increase the skill levels? I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my take on it would be is that we need to improve the skill levels, and having a skilled workforce will attract the right sort of businesses. I mean, it's often said about Mark and Vale, for instance. It's very contentious as whether Mark and Vale's brought people in that have brought their own people in, or whether it's local residents have got those jobs. But I think, there's nothing to stop them going with tandem. But again, going back to the original question about the skills audit, maybe that will reveal that we've got more people out there that have got these skills that will then lead into the marketing, if that makes any sense. We can attract them to the place. For the minute, we've not got much of a narrative or story about the people. You know, we've got a story about, you know, poor educational attainment, which we need to address. We've got, you know, things in place to try and deal with that. But as you sort of allude to in your question, is we've not got that place where we can say we've got a fantastic place for your business, for your head office, for your whatever factory it is, your manufacturing business, and we've got the workforce to fill it with. We're not quite there yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, doing the audit is great because, yeah, we might be in a situation where we have got a lot of skills here. However, they are all commuting to the likes of Sheffield or Nottingham or wherever, you know, because as you say, that there aren't the skilled jobs for them to go to locally.
Yep, thank you for that. Right, Joanna, is there any more questions? Because I haven't got anybody's names.
The Chair, Councillor Tom Munro and Councillor Peter Roberts indicating.
Right, Councillor Munro, would you like to come in first, please?
Yes, good afternoon, and my apologies for being late to the meeting. Yes, I just wanted to dwell on the government's focus on a move towards, well, on the climate change agenda and a move towards the electrification of transport, or even the move towards hydrogen fuel cells, etc., etc., and wonder if the officers dealing with this part of our agenda have actually explored whether or not, given that we surely are able to offer the potential for units or land at very reasonable prices within the Bolsover district, whether there's any chance to explore the opportunity of bringing some of these battery factories and the units that want to develop hydrogen fuel cells to consider setting up within our Bolsover district, especially given that we are so close to the M1 corridor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Joanne, who was next after Councillor Munro?
Councillor Roberts, Chair.
Well, I'm ever sorry, I missed it. Councillor Roberts, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, basically, I'm just following up on what Tom's just said. The Americans are building insecurity, as they call it. They're trying to pull away from Chinese, which I mentioned earlier, I wasn't too fond of myself. And part of that is this security of PPE and silicon chips and various other things that people need nowadays. Are we doing anything to attract that? That follows on from what Tom just said. But actually, the question was going to be, overnight stays in the district, what are we doing there? Is that something we could do in the high street? Again, I keep going back to high street, but is that something we could do in the high street to promote overnight stays in the district with some of these empty buildings we're going to have soon? A lot of people moving out. So there's two questions there, really. Following on from Tom, and then what we're going to do about, can we bring some overnight stays into the town centres?
Whether people appreciate it as much as they want.
Okay, I think taking your second question first, Councillor Roberts. Yeah, you've got a tourism strategy that's all around increasing overnight stays. And again, you know, we've introduced a topic in the action plan workstream document about looking at empty buildings. So there's certainly an appetite of looking at reusing and repurposing existing buildings. There's a piece of work going on around vacant premises already, and that's one area where, yes, you know, again, some of it is down to, you know, commercial decisions made by property owners and individuals, but equally there's a whole set of a tourism strategy around promoting overnight stays and a whole set of work around bringing empty properties back into use. which again crosses over into Carl Apps's team and the work that Thomas does over there. So that is certainly one area that we're working on and working towards. On the electric charge and the more general point, again, it's with some frustration that the LEP, T22 and Derbyshire County Council have focused a lot of their effort on freeports. I don't know to what extent you'll know, but I think it's called Redcliffe-on-Store, the power station, has been earmarked as a place for renewable regeneration. So a lot of the D20s were recently in county has been focused on getting a freeport away. This year is a really important thing for the district, and it's sort of overshadowed things like Colite and Clown and Whitwell to a certain degree, where we've got land availability and sites that are there. And I think that is something that we've tried really hard, even harder on over these last month or two and onwards, of really trying to promote and get an awareness within the LEP and within county that we have got these sites that are ready and available or nearly there. And, you know, they need to be introducing and getting us into their plans. And this is something that I think this district suffered with. This county, in my observations at least, will in their economic recovery plans, there's a lot of focus on the Derwent Valley, Chesterfield and HS2. In the LEP, there's obviously a lot of focus on the freeports. And we've struggled to get our voice properly heard there, or at least translated into their plans. But I think that will change. I think it's something that's recognised by our local MP. I think it's recognised by the leadership. I think it's recognised by many members around this board that, for whatever reason, you know, it is what it is, for want of a better expression. We've got a set of plans that are held by other people that don't necessarily include us. And we're doing all we can to change that round over for what we do ourselves, going out there and getting interest. And our discussions and our ongoing discussions with the LEP, who might fall away, because if you notice, the new government plans don't mention LEPs very much. So it's making sure we've got that voice and our voice is heard. And that is something that we are absolutely determined to do, to the point, you know, where they have to include us because they're sick of us telling them each and every meeting, each and every time we speak to, you know, and that's where we go. You know, persistence, negotiation, influencing and shaping, and try and get our voice heard much better than it might have done in the past. Like I say, you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne, I've got no more indications that anybody wants to speak. Have you spotted anybody?
No, I haven't, Chair. I think that's everybody.
Right. Well, Chris, I'd like to thank you for giving us the answer to the questions that you've been asked. And I would like to move the recommendation at point 6 within the report on page 13 of the papers. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. That's Councillor David Dixon. Can I have a vote, please? Can I have a show of hands for all in favour?
Chair, that is unanimous from committee members.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. So obviously there's no abstentions and there's no against either. So that's lovely. Thank you for that. I'd like to thank Chris at this point for presenting the report, and you'll be pleased to know you're free to leave the meeting and carry on with something else. And thank you for attending for us.
Well,
Thank you, Chair. I will leave the meeting as well.
Thank you, Councillor Dooley.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Right, Joanne, I believe we're on item 7 now. Is that correct?
We are, Chair. I think everybody's finished leaving the meeting. Yes, if I could direct members to the work programme within your papers, in particular pages 40 and 41. We're coming to the end.
Are we not doing item 7, Chair? The draft tourism strategy.
Sorry,
Item 7 is the work programme. Councillor
No,
Monroe.
item 8's the work programme on my agenda.
No, item 7 is the work programme today. Item 6 was business growth strategy, which we've just completed. Did you say tourism strategy?
Tourism.
February.
That was February papers,
Oh,
Councillor
I'm
Monroe.
so sorry. No wonder I'm struggling.
I do apologise.
You moved the meeting to 1 p.m. when most people are civilised are eating their lunch, and now I've got a completely wrong agenda. Oh well, say la vie. Sometimes you can't be on top of everything. My apologies, Joanne. Profuse
I'm
apologies.
sorry.
I'll mute myself and go back to sleep.
Tom, don't mute yourself.
I do apologise.
I'm just pleased that we're right, you're wrong.
Oh.
Right. So we're back to page 36, Joanne.
Pages 40 and 41 of the papers have got the appendix with the work
Thank
programme.
you. Right, is everybody happy at this now? Thank you.
So we're obviously now towards the end of the programme for this municipal year. We actually only have one more meeting remaining on the 12th of May, where we have the Q4 performance update scheduled. We are in the process of agreeing the meeting dates for the coming year, and I will look to start to formulate a new programme for members using the usual reports that we get on a periodic basis. Obviously, we get our performance reports, and we're obviously in the process of completing various pieces of review work, which we will look to programme in, finalising as part of that. Are there any particular issues that members want to bring forward to look at in the work programme going forward at this stage? We're not at the point where we're necessarily picking new review topics, and I can discuss that further with you in the informal meeting. But is there any particular items or particular issues where they would like to see that brought forward as part of the work programme?
Trish, Councillor Clough, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to wonder, Joe, whether we can now start to incorporate some evening meetings, or like be a bit more flexible with when we actually have the meetings.
I don't know if Nikki wants to come in at that point, Chair, just to talk to you about the meeting programme.
Chair, are you happy for me to come in?
Yes, sorry, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So members will recall at the last meeting of council, you gave consideration to your calendar of meetings as it was put and it was agreed, and that calendar of meetings will be circulated to all members very shortly. If you've not received it already, you'll be able to find that within your council pack for the last meeting.
So for the main public meetings, I believe they will follow a similar pattern to normal. One thing that we have got a little bit more flexibility on currently are informal meetings, where we're looking at our review work, and obviously we can look to adapt those to members' needs and members' availability, particularly while we still have this technology. We can look to do something different with those informal meetings if that's something that members want to consider. I can't necessarily adjust the public elements so much at this stage, but the informal meetings, we can be more flexible on those, and that's something we can look at down the line. Councillor Kirkham wishes to speak as well.
Can I just ask, sorry Tom, are we live? I'm feeling a bit
We are.
queasy. We're still live, okay.
Yeah.
I just thought I need something to eat because I feel a bit unwell.
Can I just speak? Trish, if you're not feeling well, go get yourself a drink of water and a biscuit or something. The last thing we want you to do is pass out on the screen, and we're not there to help you out. I mean, if you were in chamber, we could throw a bucket of water over you to get you back to normal. But please, whatever you've got to do, please put yourself first. Sorry, everybody, about that. Joanna
Kirkham, Chair.
Sorry,
No,
Councillor Kirkham, would like to come in about that.
Well said, Chair. Thank you. For the possible scrutiny topic, a new one, we could look at maybe green growth with respect to our old colliery sites for generating energy. We mentioned the electricity network. They're doing a review of that currently in our area for EV charging and how that can be put in different areas. What impact will EV have, considering we're probably the area in the UK that's got the most bit of the M1 going through it, and it can link into the trains and the Maid Marian line, and also the work that's happening in the group that Nick Clark's chairing, i.e. with the trees and other green things. And the LEP has just rewritten its strategy to basically be all green focused, and it should be a lot of money coming from government for that. Thanks.
Thank you. Joanne, have we got anybody else indicated?
I can't see anybody else, Chair. And what I can do is I can pass the normal topic suggestion form out to you, Councillor Kirkham, and that'll give you the opportunity to put a bit more detail to that. If you've got something else that you've got anything else to add on that, and we can look at that down the line once we're ready for a new topic. I can't see anybody else indicating, Chair.
Well,
So
I'm quite happy for you to do that, Joanne.
Okay.
I think that'd be good. Right.
So it's just to move the recommendations, Chair, on page 37.
Right, I'll propose the recommendations on page 37, please. Can I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that, Jen.
Thank you. That's Councillor David Dixon. Can I have a vote for all in, show of hands for all in favour?
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you. So we've got no abstentions or no against. Thank you for that. Right. Joanne, where are we now? Page 30. Have we done 30? Page work programme, page 36.
Yes, Chair, we've finished the main public items now.
Right.
So we're at the end of your script, bottom of page 6.
Can I thank members, this is where I am, can I thank members and officers for their attendance today? That now concludes the business of the meeting, and I shall close the meeting and ask for the live stream to be ended to the public with us on YouTube. Thank you for watching, everybody. Can I please remind members to stay connected so we can continue with our informal session and review work?